The Krail Dominion, the Theran Republic, the Vithari Alliance, all the great powers of the galaxy, watched silently. They had never held their breath like this before. For the first time, they understood that history was not just a memory. It was alive. And it had come back. The galaxy was holding its breath. And in that stillness, one question echoed across every star system, from the richest planet to the smallest outpost. What does one human warship want? The Galactic Council had never convened so quickly. Every species, from the smallest traders to the oldest empires, sent representatives. The chamber, a vast dome of shining crystal and metal, hummed with unease. For centuries, politics had been the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. But now politics seemed insignificant. One human warship had changed everything. The UNS Retribution drifted silently near the contested Orion Belt, visible to every sensor, every eye in the galaxy. It did not fire. It did not communicate. Yet its presence was a warning louder than any cannon, heavier than the gravest threat the galaxy had ever faced. At first, the debate was chaotic. The Krail Dominion wanted to strike first, claiming, "We cannot allow an unknown human vessel into our borders. It could be a trap, a weapon, a scout for a larger force." The Theran Republic, older and wiser, shook their heads. And if it is not a trap? What if humanity has returned for something else? To warn us, to save us? The room was filled with voices, hundreds of them shouting, arguing, pleading. It was the first time the Council had faced something beyond their experience. No charts, no strategies, no alliances mattered. They were small in comparison to the story this one ship told. And then the unexpected happened. A single transmission, ancient and human, cut across every channel. It was not in one language, but all could understand it. Somehow humanity had crafted a message that every species could comprehend. It was short, direct, and terrifying in its simplicity. "We are not your enemy. Stand aside. This is not your war." The chamber went silent. Every representative froze. Some turned to their neighbors, seeking answers and eyes wide with disbelief. Others bowed their heads, unsure of what to make of a species they thought gone forever, speaking from the void with authority and calm. The galaxy had not heard such words in centuries. Not from humans. Not from anyone. It was not a threat. It was not a plea. It was a statement, a reminder of power, patience, and something no other species had. Conviction. Counselor Valar of the Vithari Alliance, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, spoke in a trembling voice. They speak as though they know the outcome before it begins. They do not threaten, yet every word carries weight. They are not here to bargain. They are here to act. And the room understood the truth. The humans had returned because something had come that no empire, no fleet, no alliance could face alone. Something ancient, something merciless. And the retribution was their first sign, their warning to the galaxy. Prepare or die. Outside the Council's chambers, fleets shifted uneasily in orbit. Patrol ships waited. Scouts hovered near the human vessel, sensing for danger, for any hint of aggression. But the warship remained silent, a sentinel in the void, unyielding, unmoved. Rumors spread across every star system. Children whispered stories to each other in hushed voices. Traders warned their clients, "Stay in safe space. Stay out of the belt. Humanity is watching." Even pirates paused their raids, sending their crews into hiding. The galaxy realized something profound. They were not the strongest species anymore. Not even close. The humans had disappeared, yes, but they had not been destroyed. They had survived. They had waited. And now, one ship, one vessel carrying centuries of experience, had returned to remind the galaxy of what was possible. And the most chilling thought? The message had not been a threat nor a declaration. It was a warning. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy understood its vulnerability. The humans were not here to play politics. They were here because a storm was coming, a storm that would consume everything if left unchecked. And the retribution was the first wave, the first signal that the humans were ready to face it. Admiral Theskar of the Krail Dominion stared at the void. His ships remained in position, but his hands trembled on the controls. He had fought countless wars, faced enemies that devoured planets, and yet, never had he felt such fear. Not anger, not courage, fear. Because one human warship had reminded the galaxy of its place. Somewhere deep within the Retribution, the humans waited. They had no plans to negotiate. They had no fleets to send yet. They only had one ship, one sentinel. And yet, in that single warship, the galaxy could feel the pulse of a species that had mastered survival, cunning, and war itself. The Council could do nothing but watch, wait, pray. For the humans had said only one thing: stand aside. This is not your war. And the galaxy understood. They were about to witness something unimaginable. The silence of the stars stretched on. Ships drifted, eyes widened. The galaxy held its breath, and for the first time in countless ages, every being across the stars knew that history was about to be rewritten, not by fleets or empires, but by one human warship. The warning was over. The Council had heard the humans, and the galaxy had paused, waiting for answers. But no one knew the full story, not yet. Then they came. From the uncharted void beyond mapped space they appeared, the Devon swarm. No fleet had ever been so terrifying. 1,000,000 black shapes moving like a living storm, stretching across the stars. Their ships were not like any known technology. They were alive, organic, and machine-fused into a relentless engine of destruction. Planets had been stripped bare in their path. Civilizations had vanished, leaving nothing but silence. And now the swarm was moving toward the heart of the galaxy. Panic spread faster than light. Fleet commanders tried to mount defenses, but there was no plan, no strategy that could match the sheer scale of the swarm. Entire star systems were evacuated. Trade lanes were abandoned. The richest planets fortified their defenses, but everyone knew it was hopeless. And then, at the very edge of the swarm's advance, the UNS Retribution appeared. It did not hesitate. It did not retreat. It moved toward the center of the storm like a spear pointed straight at the heart of the enemy. Sensors across the galaxy could not believe what they were seeing. One ship, one solitary warship. And it was advancing alone, against what should have been impossible odds. The Devon did not stop. They had devoured worlds before. They had faced fleets larger than entire empires, and they had never been slowed. But this ship, it forced them to reconsider. Their sensors picked up its energy signatures, the way it moved, the calm calculation of its trajectory. It was human. The galaxy watched in silence. For the first time, hope flickered. Admiral Theskar could barely speak. One ship, one human ship. Against that? He looked at his officers. It cannot win. It is suicide. But deep down, even he knew something had changed. Humans were never ordinary. Humans were not just warships or engines of metal and fire. They were determination, cunning, and courage made real. The first clash came at the edge of the swarm. The Devon surged forward. Tentacle-like vessels whipping through space, black and sharp as knives. Sensors screamed alarms. But the Retribution held its line. Its weapons, ancient but perfected, ignited the void. Beams of concentrated energy cut through the swarm, shields flashing like lightning. The Devon struck again and again, but the ship moved with grace, precise and unstoppable, anticipating every attack. Across the galaxy, species stopped fighting each other just to watch. Even longtime enemies paused their wars, knowing that something far greater than their petty disputes had arrived. For hours the battle raged. The swarm was endless. They came like waves, each strike more violent than the last, and yet the human warship endured. Every shot it fired, every maneuver it made seemed to carve history into the stars. It was no longer just a warship. It was a legend in motion. The Council received a single transmission during the fight. A human voice, calm, steady, and fearless. Do not interfere. Stand aside. We fight only because it is necessary. No one moved. The words were more terrifying than any weapon. The humans did not ask for help. They did not beg. They simply acted. On distant observation stations, young pilots whispered to one another. They are gods. No, not gods. Something better. Humans. The battle continued for hours, then days. Every corner of the galaxy knew the story unfolding in the Orion Belt. It was no longer a human warship against a swarm. It was hope against despair. It was a reminder that even the smallest force, if guided by courage and skill, could challenge the impossible. Some began to pray. Some began to weep. Some simply stared at the stars, feeling the weight of centuries of fear lifting, replaced by awe. And all the while the Retribution pressed on. Its engines burned steadily. Its guns never faltered. Its crew, human and hardened by centuries of hidden wars, fought not for glory, not for survival, but for the galaxy that had long forgotten them. Even the Devons seemed to sense the truth. They had never faced an enemy like this. One ship should have been nothing. One ship should have fallen, but it did not. It would not. And with every strike, with every maneuver, the Retribution reminded the galaxy that humans were still here, still deadly and still unbroken. And in that moment, the universe understood the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes, the mightiest force is not numbers, not fleets, not alliances. Sometimes it is one human warship, carrying the courage of a forgotten species, standing against the impossible. The Orion Belt had never seen anything like it. The Devon swarm stretched across the stars, a dark tide of living metal and machinery, endless and merciless. Entire fleets had fallen to this horror before. But now, one ship stood against them, the UNS Retribution. It moved like a ghost through the void, its black hull reflecting the distant starlight. The ship did not hesitate. Every weapon fired with precision, every maneuver calculated to perfection. The swarm attacked in waves, a storm of claws and spikes and deadly energy, but the Retribution met them head-on, unflinching, unyielding. Sensors across the galaxy recorded the battle in awe. One ship, they said. One human warship against millions. One ship that should have been destroyed in seconds, yet now held the line for hours. Inside, the human crew fought like warriors of legend. Their faces were hardened, eyes sharp, hands steady. They did not scream. They did not panic. Every command, every shot, every evasive maneuver was executed with deadly precision. They were not just surviving. They were teaching the galaxy the meaning of courage. Admiral Teskar, watching from a distant command station, could not tear his eyes away. "How?" he whispered. "How can one ship do this?" His officers had no answers. None could. This was not just war. It was human will made real. The first wave of the Devon broke against the human shields like a tide against a cliff. Beams of energy sliced through the swarm, cutting massive vessels in half. Explosions bloomed like dark flowers across the void. Tentacle-like arms of the swarm reached for the Retribution, only to be incinerated by the human guns. The swarm recoiled, then surged again, countless forms pressing forward in relentless fury, and the Retribution pressed forward too. It did not retreat. It did not hesitate. Every strike, every blast, every defensive move was a statement. Humanity would not bend. Humanity would not fail. On the observation decks of other empires, beings of all shapes and sizes watched in disbelief. They had studied humans for centuries. They had read every record, every report, every story of bravery and ferocity, but nothing prepared them for this. One ship alone fighting a million enemies and still standing. The battle raged for 3 days. The Devon never paused. They struck like living storms, adapting, changing, relentless, and still the Retribution endured. Its hull was scarred, its shields flickered, its engines burned to their limits, but the ship held. Its crew fought with the discipline of centuries. each human knowing that failure meant not only their deaths but the death of hope itself. And then amid the chaos came the voice, calm, clear, human, transmitted across every frequency the galaxy could intercept. If one ship can stand, imagine what we were. The words were not a boast. They were a warning. A reminder. Across the galaxy, hearts skipped a beat. This was not just a warship. This was humanity speaking across centuries, telling the galaxy that they were a force beyond measure, a species that did not yield, did not surrender, and did not fear. The retribution charged into the heart of the swarm. Its guns fired in perfect unison, tearing through the Devon formations. Ships that had devoured worlds were shattered in seconds. The swarm faltered, confused, leaderless. It had never faced an enemy like this, an enemy that was fewer in number yet greater in courage. The galaxy held its breath. Even the Council, the Empires, the pirates, they all watched and waited. They could not intervene. The humans did not ask for help. They did not need it. And for the first time in history, the Devon swayed. For the first time, their endless advance was slowed. For the first time, they feared. The retribution pressed on, pushing through the enemy with relentless precision, until the tide began to break. The swarm scattered. Its forces fell apart, retreating into the darkness from which they came. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy understood what had happened. One human warship had held back an unstoppable force. One ship had faced the impossible, and survived at least long enough to change the course of history. The retribution floated among the wreckage of the enemy, battered but unbroken. Its crew tended to damage, patched systems, and prepared for the next strike. They had fought for survival, yes, but also for something greater. A reminder that humanity was not gone, that their courage was alive, and that one ship, one human, could change the fate of the galaxy. Admiral Theskar finally spoke, his voice trembling. The stories. They were true, humans. They are beyond all we imagined. And across the stars, the galaxy began to whisper the same thing. If one human ship can do this, what would happen if humanity returned? The battle was over, or at least the first storm had passed. The UNS Retribution drifted among the wreckage of the Devon swarm. Its hull was battered, scorched, and pitted with holes. Decks had collapsed under energy blasts and fires still burned faintly in the engine rooms. Yet the ship remained alive, a single black scar across the stars. Inside, the crew moved with quiet determination. There were fewer of them than before, a fraction of the 1,000 who had boarded the ship days ago. Some had not survived the relentless assault of the swarm. Others lay injured, their breathing slow, their hands shaking as they patched weapons and shields that had burned too long under fire. Still no one gave up. Humans never did. Commander Hale walked the corridors, his boots echoing against the steel floors. He stopped at a hatch where two young pilots were repairing a plasma conduit. They looked up at him, faces streaked with soot and exhaustion, but eyes bright with something older than fear. Courage. "Keep it steady," he said softly. "Every system counts. Every life counts. We hold the line, even if the line is just one ship." Outside, the galaxy watched. Across hundreds of light years, species that had long doubted humanity now whispered prayers, sent messages of awe, and mourned losses they did not fully understand. The humans were not heroes in the way stories told. They were more. They were determination, resilience, and defiance made flesh. The cost was written into every scar on the ship, every burned circuit, every exhausted breath of the crew. They had given everything to face the swarm alone. And though they had survived, it was clear that their victory had not come without sacrifice. Captain Rinn, the tactical officer, stood at the observation deck, staring into the black of space. The stars seemed distant now, distant and fragile. "We've slowed them," he whispered almost to himself. "But the swarm, it is still coming." Commander Hale joined him silently. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. One ship is never enough, but one ship can remind the galaxy that hope still exists. One ship can inspire fear in an enemy that thought nothing could stop it. They both knew the truth. The Retribution could not fight forever. Its weapons were overheating, its shields were patchwork, its engines groaned with strain. And yet its crew remained steadfast, because humans did not fight for glory. They fought because it was necessary. They fought because survival was not just about themselves. It was about everyone else. Down in the engine room, technicians worked tirelessly to repair the warp cores. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and systems flickered in and out. One human engineer, a veteran of long-lost campaigns, whispered to the machines as he tightened a conduit. "We will not fail, not now. Not ever." It was a quiet determination, one that carried through the halls of the ship, through the hearts of the living, and even into the sensors that the galaxy observed. The humans were wounded, yes, but they were not broken. Every scar on the Retribution was a story of survival, a lesson in resilience. Above them, the stars stretched silently, indifferent, yet watching. Across the galaxy, species began to understand a truth they had forgotten. One human ship could not only challenge 1,000,000 enemies, it could change the way the galaxy thought about war, courage, and hope. And yet inside, the crew felt the weight of loss. Friends who had trained together, laughed together, fought together, they were gone. Hallways once alive with chatter and commands now carried only echoes. Silence filled spaces that had known life. Commander Hale stood in the bridge looking at the starfield. His voice was calm but heavy with emotion. "We carry the memory of those who cannot continue. We carry their courage, their sacrifice, and we fight for the galaxy, even if the galaxy does not know it yet." A young pilot, barely 19 cycles old, approached him. Her eyes were wide and her voice trembled. "Sir, if we do this alone, will anyone remember us?" Hale knelt beside her. "They will. Not just today, not just tomorrow. Long after we are gone, the galaxy will remember that one human warship stood against the impossible and did not falter." That is how humans are remembered. The Retribution continued to drift forward, patched, wounded, but alive. Its weapons recharged, its shields stabilized, and its engines groaned back to life. The crew moved with quiet purpose, readying for the battle still to come. They had survived the first storm, but the war was far from over. And somewhere deep within the silent reaches of space, the Devon swarm was regrouping, still deadly, still relentless. Yet the humans did not flinch, because even in their suffering, even in the weight of their losses, they carried a truth stronger than fear, stronger than death itself. One human warship could change the galaxy. One human warship could stand against the impossible. And one human warship could teach the universe that courage is immortal. The galaxy watched, waiting, holding its breath, knowing that the next chapter was coming and that humanity would face it, alone if necessary, but unbroken. The galaxy had never been quieter. Not a single fleet moved. Not a single voice rose in the council chambers. Even the stars seemed still, as if they were watching the final act unfold in the Orion Belt. The UNS Retribution drifted forward into the heart of the Devon swarm. Its hull was scarred and battered, shields flickering, engines burning on borrowed strength. The crew moved with quiet determination, every human aware that this battle might be their last. Yet no fear reached their eyes. Only focus, only resolve, only the knowledge that their actions would echo across history. The swarm surged, endless and overwhelming. Black tendrils of living metal struck out like the claws of some ancient predator, tearing through space and soundlessly consuming anything in their path. But the Retribution was ready. Its guns fired in perfect synchrony, beams of pure energy cutting through the darkness, splitting the swarm's formations, shattering the endless tide. The battle raged for hours, but time had little meaning here. Every second was survival. Every strike, every maneuver carried the weight of countless lives across the galaxy. Observers on distant worlds could only watch in awe as one ship, one lone human warship, held back what should have been unstoppable. Inside the Retribution, The human crew fought like a single organism. They had lost friends in the previous waves, their bodies already cold in the ship's medbays, but their spirit endured. Every shot fired, every evasive move taken, was a tribute to those who had given their lives and a promise to the universe that humanity would not break. And then came the final wave. The Devon poured everything they had into one overwhelming strike. A wave of destruction meant to crush the human vessel once and for all. The ship shook violently, hull breaches flaring, lights blinking in warning. Alarms screamed in every corridor. Systems failed. Fire raged through decks. Commander Hale gritted his teeth. "Hold the line!" he shouted over the chaos, voice calm yet carrying the weight of command. "This is not the end." "Not yet." In the bridge, the young pilot from earlier tightened her grip on the controls, eyes wide with fear and determination. "Sir, we can't survive this," she cried. Hale placed a hand on her shoulder. "We don't have to survive. We only have to stand." The Retribution surged forward into the heart of the swarm. Its guns fired relentlessly. Its shields flared and faltered. And then, a single decisive strike erupted from the ship's core. A concentrated beam of energy so powerful it split the center of the swarm in two. The black mass shrieked silently as it tore apart, scattering into the void. And then, silence. The Devon had retreated, leaderless and broken. The tide of destruction stopped. The galaxy exhaled as one, relief and awe intertwining in a single trembling moment. The unimaginable had happened. One human warship had stood against the impossible, and had won. But the victory was not without cost. The Retribution floated in the wreckage of the battlefield, battered and dying. Smoke rose from its engines. Fires raged through its hull. Systems flickered and failed. The crew moved slowly, tending what they could, knowing the fight was won but survival uncertain. Commander Hale looked out at the stars through the observation deck. "We have done it," he whispered. "We have held them back. For now." His voice trembled not from fear, but from the weight of what had been lost. Somewhere deep in the ship, the young pilot who had questioned survival moments ago knelt beside a fallen comrade, tears streaking her soot-stained face. They did not die in vain," she murmured. "They saved everything." Across the galaxy, species watched and waited. Empires that had once bickered, fleets that had once warred, all paused in collective astonishment. The stories of human courage, of human determination, were no longer myth. They were real. One ship, one species had reminded the galaxy what strength truly meant. The message spread quickly. It was simple, yet carried more weight than 1,000 declarations. One human warship stood against the impossible. One human warship changed the galaxy. And in that silence, in the stillness of the aftermath, the galaxy understood something profound. Fear and awe mixed together, and hope flickered like a distant star. Humans had returned not to conquer, not to rule, not to bargain. They had returned to remind the galaxy that courage, resilience, and willpower could stand against any storm. Somewhere in the void, the Retribution's lights blinked faintly. The crew tended to the wounded, repaired what they could, and prepared for the unknown. They had survived this battle, but the war was far from over. And still, their presence alone had rewritten history. The Council, the empires, the citizens of countless worlds, none would ever forget this moment. The humans were not gone. They were alive. They were unbroken, and they were waiting. For the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new era. For humanity, it was a reminder of who they had always been. Survivors, warriors, and legends. And somewhere in the stillness of the stars, one truth echoed louder than any weapon, louder than any empire, louder than any fear. If one human warship could do this, imagine what would happen if humanity truly returned. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had a long memory, but it also had arrogance. Civilizations older than Earth looked down upon young species, judging them not by heart, but by the size of their fleets and the reach of their colonies. By that measure, Earth was nothing. To the galactic empires, humans were late arrivals to the great stage. They had no mighty armadas patrolling the stars, no sprawling colonies stretching across sectors, no ancient weapons passed down through millennia. Their world was beautiful, yes, but isolated, a fragile jewel of blue and green, sitting quietly at the edge of a forgotten spiral arm. And when the whispers of invasion spread, the Council of Elder Races barely spared a thought. Reports came in. The Sarathi swarm had set its gaze on Earth. 1,000 systems had already fallen to the swarm. Whole civilizations had been consumed, their cities reduced to ash, their fleets broken like toys before an endless tide of chitin and plasma fire. The Zarathi were not conquerors. They were devourers. They did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They descended like a storm of locusts and left only silence behind. And Earth, said the Council, was defenseless. The word was written into their records as fact. Defenseless. Doomed. Forgotten. On the surface of Earth, billions of humans went about their lives with a quiet dread. The stars above no longer seemed peaceful. Every news broadcast carried rumors of alien fleets gathering in the darkness. Telescopes caught glimpses of strange movements at the edge of the system, like shadows circling a campfire. Families huddled in their homes at night, listening to leaders promise that humanity would endure. Children asked their parents why no one was coming to help. Soldiers drilled in ruined streets, knowing rifles meant nothing against starfire. In underground bunkers, voices whispered, "We have no chance. The galaxy won't save us." No one ever has. But there were other whispers too, quieter, rarer, whispers of something hidden, something built in silence. The swarm's approach was slow but unstoppable. First, the outposts on the moons of Jupiter went dark. No distress call. No survivors. Only wreckage and drifting metal. Then Neptune's stations were attacked. A handful of blurry transmissions reached Earth. Screams, flashes of fire, and the sight of black alien ships swarming like insects over helpless human stations. Governments met in panic. The Council of Nations sent out pleas across the galaxy. Help us. Do not let Earth fall. But no answer came. The elder races had already decided. Why waste fleets on a primitive world with no value? Earth was not a trade hub nor a strategic outpost. It was simply another rock. And in their eyes, humans were simply another species too stubborn to accept their place in the order of things. Defenseless. That word returned again and again. The galaxy believed it. The swarm believed it, but Earth knew something no one else did. Far beyond the eyes of telescopes deep in the frozen wastelands of the Oort cloud, something slept. Buried beneath ice and hidden in shadows, a machine older than any human alive. Not old in years, but in silence. It had been built in secret not by nations but by desperation. Generations of engineers, soldiers, and dreamers had poured their lives into it. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the day when Earth would be left alone against the dark. They had called it many names and whispers. Some called it the Ghost, others, the Blade in the Dark. But in official records it was called only one thing, the Revenant. It was not a fleet. It was not an army. It was one ship. A warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And though the people of Earth wept as they watched the skies darken with the first shadows of the swarm, the Revenant waited, silent, patient. For even the most fragile jewel can cut deep when pressed against steel. And soon, the galaxy would learn that Earth had never truly been defenseless. It had only been waiting. No one had ever seen the full extent of human preparation. To the galaxy, Earth was a quiet, backward planet, more concerned with crops, cities, and politics than with starships or weapons. But humans had always been survivors, the species that had walked through ice ages, fires, plagues, and wars knew one truth: life could be cruel and only the clever, the stubborn, and the determined endured. For decades, humans had worked in shadows. Secret shipyards carved into moons too small to map, caverns deep beneath asteroids that no survey had ever recorded, hidden laboratories on the far side of the sun, in places where even satellites dared not linger. Here, humans built their hope, one piece at a time. The crown jewel of all these efforts was the Revenant, a warship unlike any other in the galaxy. It was massive, yes, but built for speed and stealth. Its hull coated in alloys scavenged from alien ruins. Weapons were silent until needed, and defenses were layered in ways no alien species could imagine. But what made it truly terrifying was not technology. It was humans themselves, their will, their courage, and their refusal to die quietly. Many wondered if a single ship could matter against the vastness of the swarm. Entire civilizations had fallen to the Zorathi. Whole fleets had been destroyed in hours. Yet humans had a strange way of turning weakness into strength. Where others saw numbers, humans saw strategy. Where others saw death, humans saw purpose. Inside the Revenant, the crew trained relentlessly. Pilots ran simulations of battles that no one else would survive. Engineers reinforced every system, testing it until it would hold against impossible odds. Soldiers practiced drills for attacks that had never happened, but might come at any moment. Every human on board carried the same quiet understanding. This ship was not just metal and circuits, it was the last shield for a planet. A last hope for billions, and still, they waited. The galaxy continued to mock Earth's defenselessness. Reports of the Zorathi swarm reached Earth in waves of panic. The first moons fell, and still humanity kept it secret. They did not panic. They did not broadcast their plan. They waited because they had learned a truth the galaxy had forgotten. Fear is powerful, but patience is sharper. Every day, humans watched the skies with hope and dread mixed in equal measure. Children learned songs of the stars, of heroes who fought for survival even when all odds were against them. Parents whispered stories of courage and cleverness, of ancestors who had faced extinction and refused it. These stories were not myths. They were lessons in resilience, in the belief that even a small, hidden force could turn the tide of the universe. In the deep halls of the Revenant, the captain walked slowly past every crew member. He did not speak much. His eyes, however, told stories of loss and determination. He had seen planets fall, friends die, and worlds vanish in the void. And yet, standing on the bridge of the ship, he felt something humans alone understood. The strength of the human spirit multiplied by every life that depended on it. "We do not fight because we are strong," he whispered once to his officers. "We fight because we must. Because we are human, and the galaxy will learn that is enough." Outside the hidden bays of the Revenant, satellites and drones scanned the approaching swarm. Alien fleets were vast, terrifying, and endless. Each moment, a planet fell somewhere else in the galaxy. Yet Earth remained untouched, at least untouched by the full horror. Humans could not let panic rule them, for panic would destroy them faster than any alien weapon. And then slowly, signals began to pick up. Drones saw shapes moving in the void. The Zorathi fleet was coming closer. The galaxy still called Earth defenseless, still whispered that nothing could save the humans. But the Revenant stirred. Its engines hummed softly, unseen, unheard. It was ready. Not because it had no fear, but because humans knew fear was useless without action. When the day came and the first scream of alien engines broke the silence, Earth would not kneel. The humans of the Revenant would rise from the shadows carrying hope, fury, and defiance in a single unstoppable weapon. For generations, humans had waited, hidden, and prepared. And now the galaxy would see what it had dismissed too quickly. The planet it called weak had allies it could not imagine. The species it called primitive had a warship born of desperation, courage, and a refusal to surrender. The silent watchers of the void were ready, and they would not fail. The first signs were subtle. At first, only satellites blinked out. Communications from the outer stations grew faint, then vanished entirely. News channels carried frantic reports of strange shadows beyond Jupiter, shapes moving too fast and too numerous to be human-made. Panic spread quietly through the cities. People looked at the stars and felt the cold grip of fear settle in their hearts. Then the sky changed. It was not like an ordinary storm or a meteor shower. The darkness did not drift, it advanced. Enormous shapes moved with purpose, blotting out the light of the sun. The Sorathi fleet had arrived, and their presence was terrifying. Hive ships larger than cities glided across the atmosphere, their surfaces writhing with alien appendages and weaponry humans could not comprehend. Ships of every shape and size poured through the upper atmosphere like a river of black metal.